Ladies and gentlemen, global problem demands a global solution. And this is the proposition's case in this debate today. We know that both teams have to give up a little amount of their profits. But we know, ladies and gentlemen, that the proposition's policy in this debate today is going to be a long-run win-win situation for everyone. And that is what Team Korea is here to prove to you, ladies and gentlemen. And that comes the team line of Team Korea, that everyone should be a winner in this game. So, in terms of the definition, what we propose is simple. We say pay as transferring eco-friendly technology, but not in monetary terms. We define clean energy facilities as alternative sources of energy facilities, such as solar energy facilities, hydroelectric power, geothermal power, but those fitting the needs and conditions of those developing nations who are having those energy facilities. So as I'm done with the definition of today's debate, let me move on to the case of the proposition in today's debate. We give you a three-level case today. First of all, the necessity to have an alternative sources of energy, but not only that, for those developing nations. Secondly, the policy of the proposition as a whole. And third of all, the benefits that those policies will give. So let's move on to the first part of our speech, necessity. And our necessity is going to be divided under three subpoints. First of all, regarding the environment. Second of all, regarding the developing nations. And third of all, regarding the developed nations. So let's move on to the first part, environment. We know, ladies and gentlemen, that the world is getting hotter each moment. And we also know that the fossil fuels will run out in 50 years. And that is a basis for which we say that alternative sources of energy is necessary. But not only this, ladies and gentlemen. Alternative sources of energy is going to be a long-run win for both the people and the environment. And that is the reason why we say that we see a clear necessity to have alternative sources of energy for both the environment and the people as well. But not only this, ladies and gentlemen. There is a clear necessity for developing nations to get help. It is a major fallacy to say that those developing nations have the capability to build energy facilities. We say that those developing nations do not have any basis of infrastructure or a basis of technology to do so. And that is the reason why we say that developed nations should give the technologies or major facilities for those developing nations. And that leads to my third point. Why developed nations need to help. Developed nations have polluted the environment at the sake of the developing nations at hand. They said, ladies and gentlemen, that it was okay for them to develop, but because there has not been developing nations at the moment. But it is a global consensus that we say that developed nations have polluted the environment at the sake of everyone else. And that is the reason why we say that developed nations should have incentive and should have the responsibility to help those developing nations. But not only this, ladies and gentlemen. Developed nations have had green technology research and development in the status quo. They have had the basis of technology, unlike those developing nations who do not have the basic infrastructure. And that is the reason why we say that developed nations should have the responsibility to help and needs to have those responsibility to help those developing nations. So as I'm done with the first part of my speech, let's move on to the second part. Why this need directly leads to our policy of the proposition. Our policy is this. We say that we're going to transfer technology, but not in monetary terms. We're going to say that central power sources of a government, not companies, will get technological advances that developed nations have made before. We say that those powers to develop the developed nations have in the status quo will be transferred to the central energy agencies of a developing nation's government. But what we see also, ladies and gentlemen, is that those facilities that the developed nations will build in those developing nations is not just going to be run wholly by developed nations. We say that the board of managers will be both consistent of developing nations and the developed nations as a whole, because they will reflect the interest of those people more also. But the developed nations may not have the incentive to build any energy facilities for those developing nations. So that is what we see as the payback system of today's policy. We say, ladies and gentlemen, that the energy revenue that will be gained through the taxes and gained through other measures that those energy facilities will have will be back to those developing nations. There will be a certain amount gained for those developed nations to have from those tax revenues, and that is the reason why we say that it is impractical and impossible to set a specific amount, but there will be a certain amount for those developed nations. So as I'm done with the policy of today's proposition, let's move on to the final point, benefits. And I'm going to be developing this benefit point under two levels. First of all, incentive for those developed and developing nations, and second of all, long-term benefits. So let's move on to the first part, incentive. Paying for the clean energy facilities, ladies and gentlemen, is a basis for those developed nations to build energy facilities as a whole. It will be also helping for them as a global image, because what they will do is to take an action that is eco-friendly, but not only for their benefit, but for others' benefit as a whole. They say that they're going to. They say the developed nations will say that they will have a global solution to a global problem. But not only this, ladies and gentlemen, we have also long-term benefits as well. Transferring of technology means that those technology will not suddenly disappear after those technologies are transferred. It is not a one-time thing. And that is the reason why we say that even if those developed nations' board of directors pack up and leave those developing nations, those developing nations will have the basic infrastructure and basic capacity to build energy sources that are friendly to the environment. And that will eventually make them have an energy independence and the status quo. So the proposition has shown you a three-level case study. First of all, the necessity to build energy facilities for those developing nations, and the necessity for those developed nations to help developing nations. We've also shown you the policy in which we're going to build those energy facilities. Finally, we've shown you the benefits of those policies. And that is the reason why we say that everyone will be a winner in this solution. Thank you.
A few questions. First of all, I would like you to answer the fact that developing countries are responsible for the pollution that they cause or not?
Yeah, they are.
So they are responsible. Okay. Are developed countries responsible for the pollution that the developing countries made?
Well, no, but those developed nations have made pollution before.
Okay. Moreover, could you tell me how much effort put the United States in this eco-friendly technology and investing into environment?
Millions of dollars, I guess.
Okay, and what result do they have?
They're growing sustainably in the long run.
Okay, so you're not. Do you have some facts exactly how much would these investments have improved their environment?
Can you repeat the question?
If you have some certain facts, how much this investment in the environment changed the environment in the USA?
Well, first of all, there has not been clear cases because green technology development has not been a very long project. And second of all, there has been R&D that has been invested, and there has been successful cases of those R&D in which, a city in Germany is entirely run by solar power and solar panels as a whole.
Okay, so could you tell me in China, for example, how the level of pollution, how high it is?
Oh, that is very high in China.
Okay, so and the economy, at what level it is?
The economy is a fairly strong economy.
Okay, so the economy is strong.
Yeah, fairly strong compared to other developing nations.
Okay, so they have money to invest in the environment.
Well, but other developing nations do not.
Okay, but China is also a developing country.
China is a developing country, but a fairly stronger developing country amidst of those all developing countries.
But it is an example for the other developing countries to do the same, or not?
Yeah, to do the same, but even if China has money, China may not have the basic infrastructure to build those green energy facilities.
Okay. Thank you.